The wind came first, dry, angry, and full of the taste of iron. It howled across the Byrne ranch, kicking up dust so thick it blurred the horizon into a wall of storm-colored fire. The cattle were already restless, their lowing drowned beneath the thunder rolling out of the west. Tom Avery slammed the barn door shut against the gust and shouted, "Get inside before it's too late." Clara Byrne didn't move. Her boots sank in the cracked earth, her skirts snapping around her legs. Her gaze stayed fixed on the distance, on the figures cutting through the storm. 3 riders bent low in their saddles. One slumped forward, another urging the horses harder. "Clara!" Tom's voice cracked through the wind. "I said inside." But she kept staring, breath shallow. There was something about the lead horse, the way its rider swayed, the flash of a torn coat. A memory stirred. Old war smoke, a dying sun, a face she thought long gone. The riders reached the fence line. The horses stumbled to a halt, foam streaking their flanks. One man slid from the saddle, hitting the ground hard. The other jumped down after him, a revolver drawn, his movements sharp, desperate. Clara's hand went to the rifle leaning by the porch. The storm snapped her hair across her face as she raised it, eyes narrowed through the dust. The man looked up, not at her but past her, toward the barn, toward cover. "Please," he shouted, voice rough. "He's dying." Tom burst from the barn, shotgun in hand. "Ain't our concern. Keep riding." But the stranger didn't move. His coat was ripped open, blood black against the leather. The boy he'd carried lay motionless in the dirt, too small to be anything but 19. Clara lowered the rifle, just an inch. The lightning cracked behind them, a white scar across the sky. She could see his face now, dirt, sweat, and a half-healed scar down his cheek. But it was the bad-shaped burn on his vest that stopped her heart cold. "Bring him inside," she said. Tom turned, disbelief carving lines in his face. "You can't be serious. We don't even know." "I said bring him inside." The wind made her words vanish into the storm, but the command in them was iron. Tom hesitated, then obeyed. Together they dragged the boy into the barn. The stranger followed, stumbling, one hand pressed to his side. Inside, lantern light flickered over old hay and older memories. The storm hammered the roof like fists. Clara knelt beside the boy. He was breathing shallow, a bullet hole just below his ribs. Her fingers moved without thought, cutting cloth, pressing rags, pouring whiskey to clean the wound. "Who are you?" Tom asked, watching the stranger with the unease of a man who's seen trouble ride him before. "Name's Rafe Cutter," the man said, voice shaking. "He's my brother. We just needed a place out of the rain. We'll be gone come sunrise." Tom spat on the floorboards. "You better be." Clara didn't look up. "He needs rest, not another mile." Rafe's eyes flicked toward her. "You don't have to do this, ma'am. Sheriff's men are coming. They'll burn this place down if they find us here." The words landed like stones. The lantern hissed. Clara tied off the bandage. "Then we best be ready for them." Outside, thunder cracked again, closer now, rolling over the land like hooves. Tom cursed under his breath. "You hear that? That's the posse. They're following the tracks." Rafe swayed on his feet. "You gotta turn us in. If they think you're helping, they'll—" "I don't need warnings in my own barn," Clara cut in. Her voice was calm, low, and final. Rafe fell silent. The only sound was the boy's ragged breathing and the hiss of rain that had begun to fall in sheets. They worked in silence for a time. When the boy stirred, whispering something broken and childlike, Clara brushed his hair from his forehead. "Rest easy," she said softly. "Ain't no lawman gonna touch you tonight." Rafe looked at her, really looked, as though seeing through the dust, the grief, and the widow's black she wore like armor. "You don't even know what I did," he murmured. "I know enough," she said. Tom lit another lantern, muttering to himself. "You always did have a soft spot for lost causes, Clara." She didn't answer. Her eyes drifted toward the window, where flashes of torchlight now danced faintly through the rain. "Too late for riding out," she said quietly. Tom peered through a crack. "That's Dugan's men, all right. And the sheriff himself, by the looks of it." Rafe went pale. "You know him?" Clara nodded once. "Used to, before he wore a badge. The barn went still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Rafe straightened, one hand trembling near his revolver. He's not just after me. He wants what I took. What did you take? Tom asked. Rafe hesitated. Then proof of what he's done. Gold, ledgers, things that could hang him twice over. Tom swore under his breath. You brought that here? Clara's gaze didn't waver. You'll keep it hidden. Rafe blinked. You're serious? I buried worse things on this land, she said. A horse neighed outside, sharp, startled. Then came the voice they'd all been waiting for. Clara Byrne. Sheriff Dugan's shout cut through the storm like a blade. You harboring fugitives? Clara wiped her hands on a rag, walked to the door, and pushed it open. The rain struck her face cold and clean. Dugan sat astride his horse, oilskin coat glistening. Behind him, half a dozen men with rifles waited in silence. His eyes, pale, unblinking, studied her like she was a page he'd already read. Evening, Sheriff, she said, voice level. You seen anyone riding through? She held his gaze. Only the storm. He smirked, tipping his hat back. Storm don't bleed. Clara's hand rested lightly on the doorframe. The wind snapped her shawl against her shoulders, but she didn't flinch. You gonna search a widow's barn in the rain, Sheriff? He leaned forward, close enough that the rain dripped from his hat brim onto her boots. If it keeps her warm. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Dugan turned his horse. Keep your doors locked, Mrs. Byrne. There's danger on these roads. The posse rode off, torches flickering until the dark swallowed them whole. Clara closed the door and leaned against it, the sound of rain filling the silence left behind. Tom exhaled. He'll be back. I know, she said. She looked toward Rafe, who sat beside his brother, shoulders heavy, eyes hollow. Lightning flared, throwing their shadows long across the barn wall. And for a heartbeat, she could swear she saw another figure among them, her husband's shape in the light. Then gone again, swallowed by storm and memory. Outside, thunder rumbled low and endless, like the growl of something waking. And inside the Byrne ranch, the widow finally loaded her rifle. Rain bled through the cracks in the barn roof, each drop hissing as it struck the lantern's flame. The smell of wet hay and iron filled the air. Rafe Cutter sat against the wall, pressing a blood-soaked rag to his side, while Clara Byrne stood over the wounded boy, her sleeves rolled to the elbow, hands steady, eyes distant. Hold him, she said. Tom knelt, gripping the boy's shoulders. The young man trembled under the knife's edge as Clara dug for the bullet. The storm outside groaned like the earth itself in pain. Don't you pass out on me, boy, Tom muttered. Rafe clenched his jaw, his hand twitching toward his gun, though no threat stood near. When Clara dropped the bullet onto the dirt, it rang like a nail in a coffin. There, she said. He'll live, if the fever don't take him. Rafe's breath shook. You didn't have to. I did, she cut him off. Ain't right to leave a man bleeding in my barn. She stood, wiped her knife on her skirt, and turned to the window. Outside, the rain had turned to mist, thin and ghost-like over the fields. In the distance, a single torch still burned, the last of Dugan's men watching from the ridge. Tom followed her gaze. He set in a trap, waiting for daylight. I know, she said. Her tone was calm, but her fingers drummed once against the window frame. Behind them, Rafe tried to stand. His breath came shallow, pain twisting his face. You should let me go. I'll draw him away from here. Clara turned, her eyes catching the lantern light, sharp, unwavering. You can't ride 5 steps without Fallon. Rafe met her stare. You don't understand, ma'am. Dugan ain't gonna stop. He wants the gold, the ledger, everything that proves what he's done. He'll burn this place down to get it. Clara crossed the barn floor, each step slow, deliberate. And if I told you I already buried worse things on this land? Rafe blinked. What? She reached for the old trunk in the corner. Its hinges groaned as she opened it, revealing a folded blue uniform, a tarnished medal, and a revolver worn smooth by time. Tom froze mid-step. Clara, you sure you wanna? She ignored him, took the revolver, spun the cylinder. The metal clicked like the ticking of a clock running out of seconds. Rafe stared. That's Army issue. Captain's sidearm. It was, she said quietly. My husband's. The words hung heavy in the air. The boy stirred in his sleep, mumbling nonsense. Clara turned away, set the gun on the table, and poured whiskey into 2 tin cups. She handed one to Rafe. He raised it halfway, then stopped. You knew him, didn't you? Clara nodded once. Henry Byrne. He spoke of a man once, reckless, loyal to a fault. Said he dragged him out of a burning camp at Prairie Creek. Rafe's throat tightened. That was me. Clara's eyes softened, but only for a moment. Then you're already in my debt. They drank in silence. The lantern flickered low. Outside, thunder grumbled like a warning. Tom paced the length of the barn. He'll come by dawn, sure as sunrise. We can ride east, cut through the canyon. You know them trails better than any of us. Clara shook her head. Leave in the dark. We'll break a leg before we cross the ridge. Besides, her gaze lifted to the rafters, where the wind whistled through the boards. This land's been waiting too long for justice. Maybe it's time someone gave a voice. Rafe frowned. You talk like you got a death wish. I had one once, she said. Then I ran out of reasons to die. For a long while, there was no sound but the rain easing into the dirt and the slow rasp of Rafe's breathing. Then, quietly, he said, I knew a woman once, back in the war. Went by the name Crow-Eyed Angel. Best shot I ever saw. They said she could hit a man through smoke. Tom stopped pacing. His eyes slid toward Clara, but she didn't look back. She only said, stories like that don't end kindly. Rafe gave a faint smile. No stories ever do. Clara went to the shelf above the workbench and took down a small tin box. Inside lay 6 rifle rounds, each polished like a relic. She loaded them one by one, the clicks echoing through the barn. Tom sighed. You really mean to fight him? She looked up. You think I'll let Dugan take what's mine again? Rafe frowned. What he took, her hand froze mid-motion. The storm outside was gone now, replaced by the long, lonely quiet that follows ruin. When she spoke, her voice was low, almost too soft to hear. He's the reason Henry's buried on this land. Tom turned away. She don't talk about it. Rafe swallowed hard, understanding dawning slow as sunrise. Then I reckon I picked the right barn. The lantern sputtered, casting shadows that danced like ghosts across the walls. The boy groaned in his sleep, fever burning through him. Clara cooled his forehead with a damp cloth, humming a tune too old for remembering. Rafe listened, something between a lullaby and a prayer. When the song ended, he said, Ma'am, if we live through this, you should leave this place. Dust Haven ain't kind to the ones who stand up. Clara looked at him, not with anger, but with the steady calm of someone long past fear. Dust Haven don't scare me. It remembers me. The wind crept through the cracks again, carrying the faint scent of smoke from the ridge. Dugan's men were lighting campfires, close now, waiting for dawn. Tom doused the lantern. We best get some rest, if any's to be had. Rafe shifted to lie beside his brother, wincing with every breath. You still got Henry's harmonica? He asked suddenly. Clara hesitated, then reached into the trunk and handed it to him. The brass was tarnished, edges dented, but it still shone faintly in the dark. Rafe turned it over in his hands, then brought it to his lips. The sound came thin at first, trembling, then steadier, a mournful tune that filled the barn with ghosts. Clara closed her eyes. For a moment, she could almost see Henry by the fire again, smiling in that quiet way of his. The music carried her there, into the echo of a life burned down to embers. When the last note faded, only the wind remained. Tom muttered from the shadows, You think there's any mercy left in this world? Clara reached for the revolver, checked the chamber, and set it within reach. Mercy's for men who earned it, she said. Rafe lowered the harmonica. And if Dugan comes tonight? She looked toward the door, where the mist had thickened into a pale fog curling around the fence posts. Then, she said, we meet him in the dark. Outside, a coyote cried, long, low, and lonely, and the wind carried the sound away, as though it already knew how the story would end. Fire bloomed first, a streak of orange tearing across the dark as a torch struck the fence post. The drywood caught instantly, snapping and spitting sparks into the wind. Horses screamed. The smell of burning pitch and gun oil flooded the air. "Riders!" Tom's shout cut through the chaos. "They're coming from the ridge." Clara was already on the porch, rifle in hand. The barrel gleamed in the firelight, rain hissing against the heat. Down the slope, she counted 10 figures on horseback, torches swinging, rifles gleaming like teeth. Rafe stumbled from the barn, clutching his side, the boy barely conscious behind him. "You said he'd wait till dawn," he gasped. Clara's eyes never left the riders. So did the devil. The first shot came, sharp, clean, and close. The lantern by the porch shattered, scattering glass. Clara ducked, rolled behind a trough, returned fire. The report cracked through the night like thunder, and one of Dugan's men fell from his horse. Tom took position by the barn door, shotgun ready. "They're flanking left." "I see 'em," Clara said. "Hold the line." The wind carried smoke in wild curls across the yard. Sparks drifted upward, catching the low clouds until it looked as if the stars themselves were burning. Then came Dugan's voice, cold and steady, cutting through the wind. "You can't win this, Clara. Give me the outlaw and the gold, and I'll leave what's left of your house standing." Clara rose behind the trough, rifle leveled. "You've already taken what's mine, Dugan. You ain't taking my home." Another shot, hers, and the torch in his hand spun out, landing in the mud. "Get the barn," Dugan roared. 2 riders broke off, galloping toward the stalls. Tom fired once, the blast lighting his face pale. One horse went down, the rider tumbling into the dirt. The other made it through, torch flaring bright as he swung it into the open doorway. Flames rushed up the old timber, fast as breath. The boy inside cried out. Rafe lunged forward. "Stay down," Clara shouted, but he didn't. He dragged himself through the smoke, arm over his mouth, vanishing into the burning dark. Clara cursed under her breath, eyes watering from the heat. She shot twice more, the rhythm of it steady, practiced, deadly. The attackers hesitated, spooked by her precision. Tom reloaded, coughing from the smoke. "We can't hold him much longer." "We're not holding," she said. "We're teaching." From the roof of the house, the flames reflected off her face, half-lit, half-shadowed. She climbed the ladder fast, moving with the purpose of someone who'd done this before. Her rifle slung across her back. She set down the satchel of cartridges beside the chimney. The wind screamed. The barn was a tower of fire now, its beams collapsing inward. And then, through the smoke, Rafe emerged, dragging the boy, both covered in soot, coughing but alive. Clara sighted down the barrel. Her breath steadied. Her finger eased the trigger. One man fell, then another. "Dugan," she shouted into the blaze. "You still think I'm Henry's woman? You best remember who taught him to shoot." Silence answered, then laughter. Dugan stepped forward, his coat glistening with rain, his eyes catching the light of the fire. "So it's true," he said. The crow-eyed angel wasn't just a tale after all. The name hung in the smoke like a curse. Tom froze where he stood. Rafe looked up from the mud, disbelief flickering in his eyes. Dugan drew his revolver. "You should have stayed buried with your husband." The two faced each other across the burning yard, the sky above them bleeding red from the flames, the ground alive with ash. Clara said nothing. She moved slow, deliberate, stepping into the open. Rain fell harder now, hissing against the fire, turning the scene into steam and ghosts. She aimed first. He fired first. The reports came as one. Dugan staggered backward, his badge flaring bright as the bullet struck center. He fell into the mud, face turned to the sky that burned above him. His gun slid from his hand, landing near the puddle that caught his reflection, still, and then gone. For a moment, no one moved. The wind shifted, dragging the smoke away. Tom lowered his shotgun. "Clara?" She didn't answer. The rain beat against her face, streaking black with soot. Her rifle hung loose at her side. The flames began to die, their light dimming to a dull, trembling glow. Rafe limped forward, still holding the boy. "He's gone," he said quietly. "It's over." Clara looked down at Dugan's body. "No," she said. "It's just finished." The rain thickened, soaking the ashes into the earth until the fire hissed its last breath. Smoke curled upward, turning the whole horizon into a bruised haze of red and gray. Tom kicked dirt over a dying ember. "Place is ruined," he muttered. "Ain't nothing left." Clara turned toward the house, its windows shattered, its porch half-charred. "There's always something left," she said, "even in the ashes." The wind shifted again, bringing with it the smell of sage and rain. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. The echo carried over the broken land like a eulogy. Rafe sank to his knees, pulling his brother close. "You didn't have to do this for us," he said. Clara's eyes found him through the smoke. "Didn't do it for you," she said softly. "Did it for the ones he thought he buried." Lightning flashed again. Not stormlight, but firelight caught on steel as she turned the rifle over in her hands. Her thumb brushed the initials carved into the stock, CD. Tom saw it too, his eyes widening with quiet awe. "Crow-eyed angel," he whispered. But Clara only looked out at the burning horizon, her face unreadable. "They'll come asking questions," Tom said. "Posse'll find him, find us." "Let 'em," she answered. "They'll find what he made here, and they'll find what I ended." The storm broke fully then, a hard, drumming rain that washed the fire to smoke and turned the red sky to gray. The land hissed under it, cooling, quieting. Clara slung the rifle over her shoulder, the firelight fading behind her as she stepped toward the barn's remains. The wind carried her voice, low and even. "Bury him deep. I don't want the earth spitting him back." And with that, she walked into the downpour, her silhouette fading into the mist, until there was nothing left but the sound of rain on wet ash and the memory of a night when the sky itself burned for justice. Shovels struck wet earth, dull and heavy. Mud clung to boots and hands alike. The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked ash. The world around them hushed except for the scrape of metal and the hollow thud of soil on wood. Rafe paused, leaning on the shovel, his bandaged side bleeding through. "That's deep enough," he said. Clara didn't answer. She stood at the edge of the grave, hat brim low, eyes hidden beneath shadow. Her hands were steady on the rifle, the barrel blackened from smoke. "Deeper," she said. Tom grunted, digging another foot. "Ain't no preacher to say words," he muttered. "Don't need words," she replied. "Just quiet." The storm had passed hours ago, leaving the land still and strange. Smoke curled from the black skeleton of the barn. The house leaned, half its roof gone. The Byrne ranch stood like a ghost, but still stood. When the last shovel of dirt fell, Clara turned and walked toward the well, rinsing her hands clean. The water ran dark, red fading to brown. Rafe joined her, limping, exhaustion in every breath. "You could have left us," he said softly. "You didn't." Clara looked past him, out toward the pale light creeping over the hills. Dawn was breaking, slow and cold. "Wouldn't have mattered," she said. "Men like Dugan don't end till someone stops them." Rafe nodded, his jaw tightening. He stopped now. Her gaze drifted toward the grave. "Stop don't mean gone." The wind moved through the ruins, low, whispering almost like voices. Tom dropped the shovel. "What now, Clara? You gonna stay out here, keep watching ghosts?" She didn't answer right away. The sun was lifting behind the ridge, turning the wet ground to steam, painting everything in faint gold. "This land got memory," she said finally. "Blood soaks deeper than water. I reckon someone ought to remember what it cost." Rafe reached in his coat, pulling free the small leather ledger, the one he'd nearly died to keep. "Then let the truth do that remembering," he said. "This'll ruin Dugan's men in town. The whole line of 'em." Clara looked at the ledger, but didn't take it. "Justice don't live in books," she said quietly. "It lives in what folks choose to carry." Rafe's brow furrowed. "And what do you carry in?" She finally met his eyes, calm, cold, yet not unkind. "Enough." The boy stirred in the wagon, coughing. Clara moved to him, checked his bandage, tightened the wrap. "You'll ride south when you can," she said to Rafe. "Follow the river till you hit the trading post. There's a man there named Briggs. He owes me." Rafe blinked. "Owes you what?" "His life," she said. "That'll get you food and a horse." He hesitated. "What about you?" She straightened, glancing toward the horizon where the light met the far canyon rim. Got things need doing. Things only I can do. Tom frowned. You ain't talking about rebuilding, are you? Clara gave the faintest ghost of smile. No, I'm talking about disappearing. Tom looked down, shaking his head. World could use more folk like you. The world don't remember folk like me, she said. Just the stories. She walked back to the porch, the boards creaking beneath her boots. The wind tugged at her coat. In the distance, a hawk circled over the ridge, the only thing moving in that wide, quiet morning. Rafe followed her with his eyes, the weight of everything settling on him. Clara, he called after her. She stopped but didn't turn. That night, when you fired from the roof, I thought I was hearing thunder, he said. Didn't realize it was history. Her shoulders rose once, then fell. Ain't history, she said. Just what's left behind. The wind carried her voice across the field, soft but sharp enough to stay. Rafe watched her saddle a horse, the last one still sound. She mounted without a word, reins loose, eyes fixed on the open desert ahead. You ain't coming back, are you? Tom asked. She looked toward the horizon, where heat shimmered already off the red rock. Wasn't supposed to stay this long. Then she rode. The hooves struck mud, then hardpan, then faded into distance. The morning sun broke through the clouds, spilling light across the land, over the grave, the ruined barn, the rifle leaning by the porch. For a long time, Rafe stood there, watching until she became no more than a shadow in the glare. Tom spat into the dirt. You believe what she said? That she was that crow-eyed angel? Rafe turned to him. After what we saw, he nodded toward the grave. I believe she's the reason we're still breathing. They loaded the wagon and started down the road toward Dust Haven. The wind followed them, whispering through the brush. By the time they reached the ridge, the ranch was only a dark smudge against the land, a scar that would fade with time. But stories don't fade so easy. Years later, folks in Dust Haven still spoke of that night. They said the wind had turned red with fire and the law had burned with it. They said a woman with eyes like a storm stood on her rooftop and made justice speak in thunder. Some called her a ghost. Some called her an angel. Old men by the saloon stove would nod toward the canyons and say, she's out there still, right in the desert. When the wicked come for the lost, she comes too. And when the wind rose, moaning across the open plains, the children would run to their doors, whispering the same words every mother knew by heart. Get inside before it's too late. Because out beyond the town, where the sky turns red at dusk and the dust never settles, they say a figure rides alone, a rifle across her saddle, her coat torn by time, and her shadow long as legend. The crow-eyed angel, the widow who burned the night to keep justice alive. And that, the old storyteller says, leaning close to the fire, voice dropping low. That's how Dust Haven learned that even ashes remember the flame.